you guys. Thank you. So, going to talk today about creating a culture of innovation. But actually, first, I want to do something. I want to talk about something a little different. It's about touching. It's okay. In today's world, you can't go around touching people in the workplace, right? You guys know that. I'm sure that's true in Sweden too. But but it sucks because as humans, we like physical contact. It's important to us. So I want to show. Well, okay. Is there like a very tall person in the back who could come out just by chance? Could there? Oh, hey, look, there is. Oh, hey. All right. Thanks for coming out here. So thanks for volunteering. You don't know what it's going to be. We haven't talked previously. Could you guys give your attention to me? Okay. I want to talk about high fives. So don't worry, I wasn't going to touch you in any other way than that. So I want to talk about high fives because high fives I think they're really fun, but they make me nervous because I have poor hand-eye coordination. So a lot of times I might go for the high five, and then you have that like embarrassing, the miss or the glancing miss, or the face is right there, so you can also cause a lot of damage. So we're going to do a high five. We're going to do a high five, but wait. So I have this trick. The trick is if you watch the other person's elbow, and this really works. If you watch the other person's elbow, you have great high five contact every time because the elbow doesn't move. It's weird, but it totally works. So you watch my elbow. I'm going to watch yours. That's a good one. Okay, all right. So round of applause, please, for our brave volunteer. Thank you. Okay, so high fives. That's the secret to high fives. And I would now like you all to please stand up. I know it's early and you guys are Scandinavian, but please stand up. Stand up, and I'd like to ask you as you stand up to look to the left, look to the right, high five your neighbors, watch the elbow so that there's no damage or no embarrassing misses. Yeah, all right, awesome, that's working, that's totally working. Yes, okay, fantastic, all right. Now sit down, you guys, sit down and shut up. Come on, sit down. I gotta do this talk. All right, God, come on. Okay, you had enough time there. Okay, so happy to be here. I was so pleased to be invited to this conference. They sent me an email, and I saw the other speakers. I was like, oh my God, look at these people. There's all these famous names that I had heard. There's a woman who designed spacesuits. Like, oh, what an honor. I'm so honored. And here's a picture of me here. And so you guys could see I only own one tie. I saw this when I came in today, and I was like, oh, God. I remember being at home and thinking, oh, that looks good. I'll wear that. Anyway, pretty big deal. So, so I thought I was really honored to be here, but then I did a little research, and I don't know if any of you noticed this, but okay. The Swedes and the Norwegians in the audience are already onto this, but for the rest of you, I had to look into it, and I think it might have actually been an accident that I'm here. I don't know if they did it on purpose. It could have just been like a web search for speak. I don't know. Anyway, I'm here now. So they asked me to talk about creating a culture of innovation. I don't really know that much about creating a culture of innovation. It sounds really hard. So I'm going to talk about design sprints instead. And I am going to tell you the history of the design sprint. We have to go back in time. And so this is the space-time continuum, in case you were wondering. We're going back almost 20 years in time to the year 2000. And in the year 2000, I worked at Microsoft. I worked on a product called the Encarta Encyclopedia. And I don't know, you guys are too young to know what an encyclopedia is, but it was books, and then when Microsoft in the 90s turned it into a software product on CD-ROM. You guys, you wouldn't know what a CD-ROM is, but it was a silver plate with data on it, and you could put it into a computer. It doesn't matter. Anyway, we every year would build a new version of the Encarta Encyclopedia. So we'd come up with a plan, we'd engineer it, design it, and then we would send it off to manufacturing, because the CD-ROMs, and then send it out to stores all around the world in time for back to school. So that every year there'd be a new version. And this was a well-oiled machine. So year after year after year, we're shipping the same, at the same time, a brand new version of the encyclopedia. And this was great. We were a well-oiled machine. We were great at producing a high-quality product. Unfortunately, around the time I got there in the early 2000s, a new competitor emerged for us. And, well, I don't have to probably go into great detail for you about what happened. Let's suffice it to say that if you were to go onto Google now and do a search for Encarta, the first result is... I'm glad that could provide a moment of joy for you guys, because that's like 5 years of misery for me, but that's great. That's great. Happy that you could laugh about that. So in 2005, I went to work at a different team at Microsoft, and we were building a new product. We had this idea for a touchscreen device with an app store. We thought maybe that there was some promise there. We didn't know, and so we got excited. We started arguing, though, about the design, and should we use Agile or something else, and can we convince executives? And then all of a sudden, the project got killed after a year and a half of doing it. And I'm so frustrated at this point. I'm thinking, man, there's got to be a better way to build products. There's got to be, somebody must know how to do this better. God, and I quit, in a huff. I quit my job. In 2007, I started a new job, and I was working went to take a job at Google, because I'm a traitor. So I went to go work for our enemies. But I was really excited to work at Google because the reputation was that they moved really fast for a big company. And my first project there, I was working on Gmail. I was so excited to find out, how do they go from an idea to launch? It must be really fast. And they talked about it as if it were really fast. Oh, this thing is almost, we're just going to come on, it's just a couple weeks. And then actually, by the time we got done with anything, it took about a year. Because if you're building something meaningful and you're going to launch it, it takes time to get it right and to launch it. We were just a little bit less honest about it at Google than we were at Microsoft. There was another kind of project that I was involved in during my early days at Google. They have this idea, 20% time at Google. So the theory is you could spend 20% of your time on anything you want. Start your own project or work on somebody else's, whatever you like, just provided that you spend 100% of your time working on your main project. You do that, you do whatever you want with that other 20%, feel free. So it's a little challenging, but it's cool. It was a cool opportunity. So I started this project with a couple of other folks who actually were based in the Stockholm office here, and we called it Google Meeting. There was a lot of video technology at Google, and we thought it would be really cool if you could have multi-way video chat inside the web browser. I know this doesn't sound very exciting now, but 12 years ago, this seemed very, very interesting. And so in 2007, 2008, 2009, we're talking about this. We're excited at first, but then we're arguing about the design, and we're trying to decide how we should build it and convincing different executives. And I was like, oh, wait a second. Oh, no, I've seen this before. This doesn't have a good ending. And I had the opportunity in 2009 to go to Stockholm to visit my other two colleagues on this. And so I went there in January, and in January. And I would normally now make a joke about Stockholm in January, but I feel it would be a bit close to home for you guys. So this is a photo of Stockholm in January. It's a joke. It's just a dark slide. Yeah, people love that in California. Sorry. So I know how it is. So we had no reason to want to go outdoors, which was great, and we couldn't see anything out the window, so we just cleared our schedule and we focused on building a prototype. We decided if we build a prototype this week, we could show people how exciting this idea is. So we decided very quickly on the design. There's one of my colleagues in that video feed up there, historical footage of me without a beard. We decided big video on the top, little video on the bottom. The engineer built this prototype. Michael's this guy's name, and he built this prototype where you could actually use the video chat in the web browser, and inside Google, we started to use this for meetings. And it kind of spread around the company because people could understand now how it worked. They could really see it and use it. And then a few years later, this launched as Google Hangouts, and then now today it still exists as Google Meet, which is, it's cool. It's a fun anecdote. But the thing that fascinated me about this afterwards, when I kind of looked back on that week, was that we'd been doing this, and then when we sort of restarted and focused on making a prototype really fast, everything changed after that. We had momentum, and the project kept going. It didn't get killed. And I started to think, because that first moment, that first beginning of the project, I'd been inside Microsoft, and from the outside had assumed they know everything about building software. And the same thing at Google. When I came in, I thought they knew everything. And they did. I mean, they knew lots of stuff. They were great at it. But nobody had an idea about the beginning, about how to get started. and nobody had a plan, nobody had a recipe. And in the chaos that happened in the beginning, a lot of really interesting projects would die. They would wither, or they would just meander. They lacked a strong start. And I thought there's maybe an opportunity there. Up until that point in my career, my job had been designing products, and I thought maybe I could design time in the same way. And to explain what I mean by designing time, I have to talk about how undesigned time is usually at work. So if I remember back to when I started my job at Google, I get there, I'm so excited to be at Google. I'm like, yes, okay, new job, so great, can't wait to get going. Look at my email inbox, there's nothing in there because I'm a new employee, I don't have any messages, so okay, great, what's going on? Calendar, totally empty, just blank slate, blank canvas, start to meet people. Hey, okay, Bob, awesome, let's check in later this week, meet my manager, she can make time to chat with me at lunch. I go to my first project meeting, kickoff. Now I'm a part of a project. I feel so good. I'm really being included. And then there's a couple of team events that come on, and I'm starting to feel a part of things. A second project, now I'm being fully utilized. This is great. And then, I kind of get in the swing, kind of in the flow. I'm really getting to all the stand-ups. But at a certain point, things get really hectic, and I'm like, I gotta find 30 minutes to check my email while I'm eating lunch before I have to go, and I color code my calendar so I know which building to be in, and then at some point it just stops. I can't even remember why I started working here. It's just like, if I could just survive, it's just like, God, oh God, so you have to get to, Friday, what happened? What happened this week? I have no idea. There are all these default settings at work, these defaults, like you invite me to a meeting, yeah, you're my colleague, I want to be helpful, I will come to your meeting, I'll be there, okay, you send me an email, I'm going to reply all as fast as I can because I want to help you, I want to be helpful, send me a message, boom, right back at you. And as a result of all of this helpfulness, by default, we're just ping-ponging off of each other all the time, and no wonder it's so hard to focus and get something meaningful done, and even if it's the most important project in your life. So, okay, I thought maybe at the beginning I could clear some time and design what happens during that time, not let it get filled up with all those defaults. So I tried to think about what would make for the perfect week. And based on projects I had worked on and projects I had seen, I thought that the difference between success and failure might be a few elements that were really important. One of those is confidence. The team has to believe in what they're building. Another one of them is commitment. Maybe people on the team are going to disagree, but they still have to be committed. They have to understand why we've made the decisions that we've made and be ready to act on those. And then there's this issue of momentum. It's very important. You're starting off something new, and you need to attract people to join your project. And when you run into obstacles, which is inevitable, momentum, that's kind of an emotional, quality, but momentum can carry you through when there's an obstacle. So this is important as well. And I knew from my own experiences when I had been working under a tight deadline with my colleagues that those moments might be exhausting in a way. We're trying to get a lot done in a short period of time, but they're really meaningful. It felt like the best of work. Like, this is the reason why I came to work here with these other smart people. And so it would be hard and fun, and it actually might be enjoyable to do something like this. So in 2010, I started a new 20% project, and I called it the Design Sprint. And I ran the first one, and over the next couple of years, I ran several of these around Google with different teams until this became like my full-time job at Google. And I was experimenting in those early days quite a bit with the format. In 2012, I left Google and went to go work at Google Ventures. At Google Ventures, we were investing in startups, and this was really interesting to me because startups do this thing where they know they need to learn, and they know they need to move fast. So it's not this long, drawn-out process. It's let's get our product out in the world and get some data so we know if we have product market fit. But the challenge for these companies was that in order to learn, they were making a minimum viable product, and that meant building and launching. And building things, well, they would say, we're going to launch this in a few weeks, and it would be a few months, or we're going to launch it in a few months, and it would be next year. And pretty soon, this very fast, sort of nimble process actually looked a lot like what we were doing at Microsoft 20 years ago. So what I did with my colleagues at Google Ventures was to find a way to shortcut that cycle, to add a test into that same 1 week process it wouldn't be perfect scientific data. It's not the same as real people spending real money, but it would give us some information about whether the hunch that the team was about to spend months on might be right. And from 2012 to 2016, I had the opportunity to run 20, 25, 30 sprints a year. And each one of these dots basically represents an experiment. It's an experiment for the company. They're trying something out. Each startup is trying some idea, some product idea with their customers. But there were also experiments in the process itself. We had a checklist of activities, and you could kind of debug what was working or not working. If something didn't work here, then you could have another chance in a week or 2 weeks to figure out, okay, where was the flaw, and can we adjust our process to make it better? So the process that we landed on, the design sprint, I'm going to take you through like the high-level picture of it. There's a big challenge in the beginning. That's what it's all about, starting on a big challenge. And you bring together a team of people, 5 to 7 folks, including a decision maker. You find a week of time, clear the calendar during that week. And instead of following those regular office defaults, we are going to replace those with this checklist that I was talking about. In the back of my book, Sprint, which you should buy many copies of, that's the best way to guarantee innovation. The more copies you own, the more innovative you'll be. I cannot emphasize this enough. In the back of the book, there's a 14-page checklist with all the activities you need to do in a design sprint. And it's super specific, down to the 5 and 10-minute increments, when you can use the toilet, everything is outlined there. Yeah. But I want to give you the high-level picture. Day by day, each day, there's a focal point. And on Monday, the team makes a map. So they're going to, instead of perfectly planning everything, which can be paralyzing, but it's what teams I was working on what we always tried to do at the beginning, we just focus on one key moment. So we do this by creating a very simple high-level map, who our customers are, how they move through, and then by the end of the day, we can have the decider choose, what's the target here? Who's the most important customer? And what's the most important moment for us right now? Where's the biggest risk or opportunity? We're going to recruit 5 of these target customers, and we're going to have them show up on Friday so we can do one-on-one interviews with them, showing them a simulation, a prototype of that moment. So now we've got this deadline created. We have to get things done by Friday because strangers are coming in. Super powerful. On Tuesday, we sketch solutions. The way most teams will come up with solutions to a problem is a group brainstorm, and there are problems with that. I've conducted a lot of group brainstorms before I started doing sprints, and the problem I always saw was this. Here's how brainstorms work. People talk about ideas. They shout out ideas. Sometimes somebody gives a sales pitch with their idea. As soon as that happens, the sales pitch, everybody has to include one. Some people don't participate as much in the group brainstorm, and there are a lot of reasons why that might be. Maybe they're more introverted. Maybe they're new to the team. Maybe they're like me, and if somebody else talks, it just like resets my brain. I can't remember what I was thinking. But whatever the reason, it doesn't include everyone equally. And then there are some who participate far too much, perhaps. And what I saw happening at Google was that, for the most part, people enjoyed doing brainstorms. It felt creative. It felt like the right thing. But the ideas that came out of it were not launching. They were never making it to the real world. And the reason was that some individual would always come up with a better idea. It would have happened sometime before the brainstorm or sometime after, but totally unconnected to that activity. Somebody would be waiting in line for a coffee or taking a walk, and an idea would come into their head, and they would spend some time thinking about it, mulling it until it became more of a full-fledged solution, and then they would use their expertise, whatever it might be. A designer might mock it up, an engineer might make a prototype, maybe a product manager is writing a spec or putting together a presentation, but they would put together a detailed proposal for what they were talking about. And when they came back to the people who had these thin ideas from the group brainstorm and said, hey, here's what I think we should do, everybody else would just be like, yeah, that's better. Yeah, we should do your thing. I agree. And it was better. I mean, now we have a fully thought through detailed plan. That's great. But it kind of sucks because these folks, we haven't heard from them. We don't know what they would propose. We only have one path here. That's kind of a bummer. So in putting together the design sprint process, I wanted to have competing solutions, a level playing field, but I wanted to have a competition so these other people have a well thought through solution too. So in the design sprint, instead of the group brainstorm, we work alone together. Every person is going to come up with their own solution in silence. And it doesn't look like an exciting picture of people doing, creativity. There's no colorful sticky notes on a glass wall. There's no mildly attractive people. Instead, it's just everybody's huddled around a table and quietly, it looks like a high school test. It's kind of boring looking. But what's great about this is we get a detailed solution from every person, and now we have this healthy competition. We have different ways of looking at the problem. So on Wednesday, we have to choose which of those are the most promising, which ones should we prototype. And by default, teams will endlessly discuss, try to reach consensus, argue. Instead, in the design sprint, it might not be the perfect solution, but it's going to be fast. We're going to be decisive. So we use a process for that. And what we've done now is, because the solutions are on paper and they're up on the wall, we can look at them without talking. And that's so powerful to take the conversation out. It's so powerful. So we can silently review those sketches. We can have a quick critique where we're talking about what's on the sketch. We're not talking about the abstract, verbal, explanation somebody gives. And then at the end, the decider can choose 2 or 3 solutions that we're going to fit together into a prototype or make competing prototypes of. On Thursday, we build that prototype. So by default, startups were building minimum viable products. What we said was, look, let's just fake it. We're just going to fake it. And we make something that looks like it's real, but we're going to throw it away when the week is over. It's just, only purpose is learning. So here's a team building a prototype. They're splitting up the work. Some people are doing one part, other people are doing another part. And the whole idea here is to create a facade, a fake front. Here's a website that's made in Keynote, but it looks real enough. It looks quite real. Here's a website, static images, exported from Keynote, stitched together in Marvel or Flinto, or some people use Figma if they're really fancy. It looks like an app that's in the App Store, but this is just mocked up. But in this way, the team can simulate what's it like when people try to install our app, what's it like when they try to set it up before they've launched. So they only get one chance to launch for the first time. Here's packaging. Here's a sales deck, a sales conversation, a service, like an actual physical space that's being prototyped. There are all kinds of things you could do in one day. These folks prototyped a snack bar. They took different ingredients, glued them together with honey, made a realistic plastic wrapper, and put them up against other snack bars to see which ones would people pick up. How do people act when they're in a store setting? And it turns out that what people want in a snack bar is a transparent plastic window, like a clear window, through which you can see chocolate on the other side. So that's a little free bit of information for you. If you take away nothing else from my talk, I hope you'll remember that. So on Friday, the team runs a test, and the default is to wait until we have perfect scientific, real-world, large-scale data. We cannot trust anything, but in a sprint, we're going to get quick and dirty data right now, right away. And we're going to do this with one-on-one interviews. So they're going to happen with a conversation between somebody on the team and a customer who we've recruited. 5 of these interviews happen throughout the day. The customer's looking at the prototype, going through a task. And as they go through, the team is watching over video, and they're taking notes about what happens. We've got a list of key questions, and we're going to try to find answers to those questions. And so by the end of the day, we've got something that looks like this, a spreadsheet with red lights and green lights. And as you can see here, this is the real results from a startup's sprint. You can see there are 5 customers who came in throughout the day. And for the most part, the prototype did not work. People were not interested. This 5th person on Friday afternoon, possibly drunk, I don't know. But everybody else hated it. Okay, so this looks, from the outside, this looks bad. God, what a failure this was. These guys are idiots. But how depressing for them, how embarrassing. But actually, it feels much different in the sprint room. There's a couple things going on. One, you look at this and you think, thank God we didn't build this for a year and launch it. This is much better. We found out right away all these problems. The other thing that's happening is everyone in the room has the same context about what we're doing, about why we proposed this prototype, about what the customer reaction was. So together now we can all say, okay, how do we fix this? It's usually quite easy with all that information booted up in the head to figure out how to bridge the gap. So the next week, the team will fix the prototype, test it again. And this is the results from that team sprint the next week. And this is the kind of thing I've seen over and over and over again, that the lights flip to green. The team then has confidence, they have commitment, they have momentum, they're ready to go and execute, however long that might take. What I recommend teams do nowadays is I say, hey, start with a design sprint, figure you're going to screw it up and you're going to need to do it again. And then, yeah, go ahead and build and launch. And that loop, that idea of the loop, it's super smart. You just got to be honest that it might not be a little cute circle. It might be more of an oval. So you should have some confidence before you begin. So I've done a lot of these design sprints, and I wanted to tell you the story of one that I think is particularly interesting. There's some cool stories. Lego has done design sprints at sort of a large scale across their company, and the New York Times used them in a hackathon. There's some cool kind of case studies, but the one I want to tell you is this small, weird company called Savioke. It's my favorite sprint story. So it's this company who we invested in when I was working at Google Ventures. They make a hotel delivery robot, and they had this idea. They had built a proof of concept. They had one kind of working version of this thing. The idea with the robot is actually it's almost exact size of this guy right here, and the robot, if you were working at the front desk and somebody called in room 316 and said, hey, I need a towel, you could open the hatch on the top of the robot, you could put a towel in, close the hatch, type in room 316, and the robot, like a little self-driving car, would navigate through the lobby, dodging people and obstacles, and make its way to the elevator where it would wait, wirelessly calling the elevator. It would get on and ride with people, kind of get to the third floor, get off, and then it's got a map of the hotel, so it knows how to get to room 316. And when it gets there, it triggers another phone call, and inside the room, the phone rings, and the person picks it up, and a robotic voice says, your delivery is here. And then when the door opens, the robot senses that it's opened, and the hatch pops up, and the delivery is made. And there's a lot of technology to making that work, but the team had done it. They had made all of those things I described work. But they still had this really big question they were wrestling with, which is, how should the robot behave? And the challenge, these are folks who had worked in robotics for a long time. So the challenge they knew was that we tend to sort of overestimate what robots can do. We tend to think we're spoiled, We've all seen science fiction, and we think robots have thoughts and plans and hopes and dreams. They fall in love, But they don't. They don't. And this robot is effectively a trash can on wheels. So if people had a conversation with it, if they asked it a question or told it to do something, they were sure to be disappointed. And if you're a startup making a robot, you're like, if people aren't really happy with this thing, look, people are going to be writing stories about this in the newspaper because it's so weird. Hotel guests, they're going to be writing reviews talking about it because it's so weird. So if we don't do a great job, if we disappoint or frustrate people, our company could go out of business. So the safe thing to do, the smart thing to do, is to give the robot no personality at all, right? That makes sense. But if you're making a robot, you got to think, it'd be kind of cool if we had some fun with this, and that's what they were thinking. They had a bunch of ideas for things they could do with the robot, so they decided to do a design sprint to test it out. So on Monday, they make a map, right? Okay, so they're making the map, and they bring together a team. They've got a lot of different skill sets in the room, different expertise. The CEO is there, and they make this map. So the map is all the places where the robot might encounter a guest who is not expecting to find a robot in the hotel. And the CEO says, look, the moment of delivery, if you get all the way to your room and you don't know there's a robot, that could be really awkward, but it could also be really great. We should do an awesome job there. So they decide on that moment. Okay, Tuesday they sketch. Here's an actual video of the sketching of the robot. It's super boring looking. You can't tell they're sketching a robot. It's just a boring looking activity, but they sketch. Everybody came up with an idea. Some people brought in old ideas, things they had been thinking about before, but those ideas had been pushed aside or it wasn't the right time. And some people came up with a new idea. They've got all these competing ideas. On Wednesday, the CEO's got to decide. They do the whole process to evaluate them, and at the end, the CEO decides. And he chooses these 3 risky ideas to test. The first idea is, what if the robot could play games? And what if it could play hide and seek, in the hotel room? Or follow the leader, right? That could be really fun. Well, fun. People like the robot. They might like to kind of play with it. Seems cool. So that's one idea. Second idea kind of seems obvious, but to give the robot a face. It seems obvious, but the thing is, it's kind of dangerous. They did not want people to talk to the robot, because as soon as you start talking to the robot, you're going to be disappointed. And they figured, though, somebody came up with this idea where there was like a speech bubble, with text in it, and the face itself didn't look very intelligent. And so they thought maybe that would work. So they said, okay, let's try that out. And then the third idea was that the robot would do a dance after it made the delivery. And I want to go on the record, this is a dumb idea because the robot, you saw the robot, it doesn't have any arms or legs or neck or hips. All it can do is pivot. And this is how I dance, but I know it's not charming. I do this and nobody wants to talk to me. So I knew this was a bad idea, but the CEO thought it would. Okay, so he's this boss, right? He has to choose. So Thursday, they build a prototype. They build the prototype, and you can see here they are working on it. They've got 8 hours to get it done. They split up the work. This guy's doing sound effects. These folks are working on the face. They're using Keynote. They're putting their Keynote presentation on an iPad mini. It's got hotspots and animations, so it looks like a face. They pop the front panel off of the robot, stick the iPad on there, so it looks like this digital sort of smiley face and like a little speech bubble on there. Okay, and then normally the robot drives itself. It does all that sensing and the mapping all by itself, but they only needed to make 5 deliveries, so they didn't really need to program all of the games and all of the dance and everything. They could just do it in manual override mode. You can see here, this is Tessa, the CTO, and she's got a PlayStation controller, and she's just remote controlling the robot. The idea would be that she'd kind of hide out of the way and drive it so it looked like it was doing its regular thing. So it's Friday. It's time for the test. This is pretty exciting because the team decides they're going to do it in a hotel, and they're going to show people what it's like in the hotel, not suspecting that it's going to be a robot who shows up at the front door. So I want you to put yourself in the shoes of the person who comes in to do this. But you got to know a little bit of background first. My colleague Michael at Google Ventures, he's a researcher when I was working there, and he comes to the hotel early in the morning, and he's got a suitcase. This is an actual photo of him. And he's got webcams and tripods and extension cords and duct tape, and he sets up kind of a makeshift research lab, putting drop cams in the hallway and throughout the room. Pretty sure the hotel was okay with it, and so that the team would be able to see from every angle what it's like when the customer sees the robot for the first time. So now you're that person, right? And it's the morning. The first person comes in, and earlier that week you saw an ad on Craigslist. And when you saw that ad, you were like, $100 to come in for a usability test, and I'm going to be in the area anyway, and sure, stop by this. Okay, that sounds kind of interesting. And you filled out a form where you kind of answered questions about your travel habits. You get this email back from Michael because the team has chosen you out of all of these hundreds of people who responded as the person who matches their target customer. And there's a line in there that kind of makes you go, I don't know if this is such a good idea. $100 Craigslist hotel room. We got some alarms going off. God, I don't know. But if you're like me, you might commit your future self to things that you later regret. So you're like, okay, sure. But now it's Friday. You're there in the lobby. Michael shows up. He's like, hey, come with me. You're in the elevator with Michael. Small elevator. You're in the hotel room with Michael. There's cameras everywhere. Yeah, like, oh, God. Michael says, we're testing a device, but I don't want to tell you what it is until you see it. I'm going to get myself into this. It's a terrible idea. No, but Michael's a professional. He's very, very professional, and he's not at all creepy, unlike me. So he makes the person feel comfortable. He says, hey, look, you check into a hotel. Where do you usually put your suitcase? And the first person, this woman says, I'd probably put it over here. Okay, so you unpacking. Do you unpack right away or later? So, I don't know. I guess maybe later. Okay, let's say you unpack and you find that you forgot your toothbrush. What would you do? And she says, I probably, talk to the front desk and find out if they've got one or if I can go get one nearby because I want to have a toothbrush and I don't want to mess with it when I'm tired later. So Michael says, okay, here's the phone. Here's the number for the front desk. We'll just call them right now and see how that goes. So she's like, all right, sure. So she calls, and somebody from Savio gets their phone number, right, not the front desk, and they answer and say, yeah, we'll send a toothbrush right up. So while this is going on, the team is watching over all of these different monitors. They can see those camera angles. They can see what's going on, and they are able to watch as Tessa maneuvers the robot. It comes into position, and the person from Savioke calls back and says, your delivery is here, kind of the robotic voice. And they're able to watch as that hotel guest goes to the door, opens it, and sees the robot. It's as if they've fast forwarded into the future, or a possible future, where they took this big chance with the personality to see what happens. How do people respond? So, she takes the toothbrush, and what happens throughout the day, they're able to do this 5 times, 5 visions of the future throughout the day. So it turns out that nobody wants to play hide and seek with a robot in their hotel room. Okay, all right, okay. That's savings of a lot of engineering time. That's good to know. That's helpful to know. I have to admit, when we were talking about it in the abstract, this made a lot of sense to me, but I get it. The face worked. No one tried to talk to the robot. They thought it was pretty cute, but nobody tried to talk to it. So that was great. And the dance actually was a big hit as well. Shows what I know. I'm going to show you what it looks like when the robot does the dance, and you can decide who's cuter, me or him doing it. I think you'll see, yeah, it works a little better when he does it. I don't know. I'm not sure how he does it. It's really got something going. Anyway, so I don't know. Anyway, there were a lot of stories and customer reviews about the robot because it is weird, and they were really positive. Here's a story about them in the New York Times, and there's the picture of the face. The personality was something people talked about a lot because it's fun. They had fun with it. They are making robots. Of course, they're excited about robots, and they got to do that in a way that was fun for them, and it turns out people responded to that. And so this company has been pretty successful. They're in a lot of different hotels now. They did a deal with FedEx, but the real story with this is that instead of following the default, which is to play it safe, they were able to take a big risk. And those big risks, those are the kinds of things that are more likely to make a company wildly successful, But they're risky, so we know how dangerous it is. We know how long it's going to take to build something, so it often makes sense to kind of be more careful. When you take those risks, I think you're actually more likely to have that big success. In a design sprint, it's a way to take that chance without really risking anything more than 5 days and embarrassing yourself in front of 5 people. In 2016, the book Sprint came out, which again, purchase as many copies as you can. And it's announced 2019, 3 years later. And this process is kind of starting to spread. It started off with those few teams at Google, and then it kind of caught on at Google, and now they've got hundreds of people trained to facilitate sprints, which is cool. Through Google Ventures, we started working with our startups, and then I started blogging about it. A lot of tech companies started to pick it up and run with it, and some of those have really stuck and caught on there. Some agencies and consultancies also picked it up and ran with it. Some are larger ones, and there's some small ones who just do design sprints, which is pretty cool, and they're finding new ways to kind of improve the process. There are a lot of bigger, more traditional companies who are making it work, and some universities. Actually, Reykjavik University this week is doing 100 design sprints with 500 students all at the same time. And it's the second year they've done that. Super cool. And or some other kinds of organizations like governments using it to make decisions in different ways. Things that I never would have fathomed when I started tinkering around with this stuff. And I think it's all really cool, but it does make you wonder, kind of bring back to that question of a culture of innovation. How do you do that? And I still don't know. I still don't have an answer for you all, but I'll give you a thought about it, which is that if you're doing this, if you're building stuff in whatever form that happens inside a company, it might seem it certainly seems to me that if you want to be more innovative, you're going to need to do big stuff. You're going to need to change the way you do things, change your philosophy, change your approach, change your methods. And that's scary because you won't know how those changes work for a long time, and they're going to be costly to do. But another way to think about this is to think about making one sort of small experiment. And from that experiment in a sprint, hey, in a company, it might not work. They might decide this didn't really work for us, and then they don't have to do it again. But if it does work, there are a bunch of things going on inside that week. We're being more respectful to our colleagues. We're listening to their ideas. We're making decisions quickly and rationally. We're taking risks. And those ideas can actually spread from outside of the sprint and affect the rest of the organization. And I've seen this happen. So it's a way of looking in an unexpected place. It's a way of making one small kind of weird change that could have an outsized benefit. It's kind of like watching the elbow in a way. And so I'll kind of leave you with this link. This is, if you're interested in design sprints, I've set up a little web page for you guys with some case studies about Lego and the New York Times and some resources. There's a discount on a masterclass if you want to learn a whole lot more about sprints. But I want to, in my last couple minutes here, talk about something else. So it's lucky for me to be here on the stage and to get to talk to 1,000 people at once. It's pretty exciting, all right? And I feel like I should make the best use of that I can. So this is not on the topic of design, but I think you'll see the connection maybe, or maybe not. Either way, I want to share this quote with you. This is a quote from a famous American. Actually, it's my dad. My dad said this so many times. When I was a kid, and he would say this, I was like, oh, whatever, Dad. So annoying. Stop with your boring sayings. But when I grew up and had a full-time job, and especially when I had kids, I sort of realized how true this is. We do spend most of our waking hours at work. It's a huge part of our life. It's important to make that time as effective as possible. And I interpreted this once I started to have kids as an encouragement to do design sprints, as an encouragement to be more effective so that I could make the most of that life that was outside of work. And with that in mind, this idea of like life and moments, I want to share something with you that's I hope kind of interesting. This is going to be pictures of my dad. He was born in 1930, so we're going to see 80-some years of photos. And it's kind of interesting to see a bunch of photos from a person's life. And I'll explain why kind of as we go. But so here he is as a baby, okay? And you're going to see him grow up just really fast. You'll see him grow up. Really scary Santa Claus. I don't know. I'm not sure what's going on here, but you can tell he's worried. My dad is worried about what's going on here. Okay, 2 years old. You'll see a lot of animals, dogs, horses. My dad, he loves animals here as a kid, and you're going to see him here on a farm. He's visiting this farm that his uncle's own. My dad lives in the city as a kid, but he goes every weekend that he can to the country, to the farm. And he dreams of, when he grows up, having a farm, working on a farm, but instead he grows up to be a lawyer and work in the city. Now, my older brothers and sisters here. A mustache. He's very fond of the mustache. You're going to see the mustache from now on. Just look for the guy with the mustache. That will be him. More kids. Here's me now. I look good in that photo, I think. This is a great photo. I don't think I have to explain all the reasons why it's good, but one of the things that's really neat about this is that when he's 50, my dad moves to a small town. He moves the family. I don't remember because I was a baby, but we move from the city to this small farm, and he continues to work as a lawyer, but you'll now see lots of photos of him working on the farm. More me. There's me and him on the farm. This is the kind of technology we have in the United States. We're a bit behind, okay? We're a bit behind. We're doing what we can. Grandchildren now. This is my son when he was young. He's 15 now. He's all grown up when he's little. Our grandchildren. With my mom here. And here's me and my dad, who we both have similar taste in shirts, as you can see. We're looking at photo albums, and we're looking at a lot of the photos that you just saw. And it's an interesting thing. Photo albums are kind of less common now because we take so many pictures digitally, but it's fun. It's like this, you can see a life inside a photo album. And we're looking back at those photos. And my dad died a couple weeks after that photo was taken. And at his memorial service, I put together this slideshow for the memorial service, and I shared these pictures. Friends and family were there. People told stories that they remembered about him. And I was struck by the fact that there were also many people who he had worked with. My dad had many different jobs throughout his life, and people came from the city or people who worked with him in the country, and they came and told stories about him. And we had all these photos of, times together as a family. There's these other pictures. I don't have many, but they're pictures of him. They're moments that he had at work with his colleagues. One of the things that I admire most about my dad and remembering him is how wholehearted he was about his work, how much he put his real self into it. And I thought about how this life at work can feel like it's separate and we just got to get it done, and it's okay if it goes by in a blur because of all the email and calendar meetings and all that stuff, so we can get to this. But they're both life. They're both moments. Moments are all we have in life. Everything else is kind of fiction. Right now is the only thing we have. And when we're at work, that's real. And if you don't have to do design sprints, but if you don't do everything you can, and right now this icon represents joy and passion, this thing that gives you purpose for your work. If you're in your job right now, if you have that, if you know what it's about, and most of your time is spent doing that thing, then that's great. If you've lost it, or if you can't remember what it was, or you haven't found it yet, you got to do everything you can to find it. And once you get there, you got to help your colleagues to have moments doing the thing that matters more often. You got to help your clients and your customers to do it, because it's our life. We're so lucky to be humans and to have a life, and it goes by so fast. So don't let defaults take it over. Don't let your time go by in a blur. Find those things and fight them and experiment with them and break them down so you can get back to what matters. It's our duty. It's our duty to do that. And I wish you the best of luck, and I thank you so much for your attention. Thanks, you guys. Thank you. Thanks, you guys. Thanks, you guys. Is that for me or for? What's going on here?
We're gonna ask a thing.
What's the deal?
I'm not quite as tall. Please hold your applause.
Is this like an IKEA segment? Yeah. I wasn't informed about this.
Yeah.
What's going on here?
We can't name IKEA. It's just a generic palette.
Okay.
But I wasn't quite as tall as the guy back there, but I want to try out this high five.
Oh, okay. So watch the elbow.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah, that hurt almost.
That did hurt. You're stronger than I am. Ready? Okay.
Great work.
That's great. Okay. Nice high fives, you guys. Oh.
Now,
yeah, these guys are good, huh? Yeah. Also, how about the outfits? These are, am I right?
Yeah.
I get to keep this, right? Because I have nothing like this at home.
This is good. I thought I would get an outfit, but
you wouldn't fit this. Now, one of the interesting things, first, we wanted to give you a hug after that. That was really an amazing thing to talk about.
It's okay
at the end there.
if you want to hug me.
I'll do that later.
Do that afterwards.
Okay, later.
I want to get emotional.
Maybe now that I actually offered, probably kind of got weird. It got weird on stage.
But
the Swedes are just shifting in their seats. God.
Not
you got an
too much
American here. I'm a
happening.
transplant. But one of the interesting things about the design sprint is the attention to the details, down to the post-it notes all being the same size and color, the pens all being the same size.
I'm a nerd. Yeah.
And but there seems to be a purpose behind it. And the high fives I was really fascinated by. Could you go into a little more why the high five?
The high fives are a recent addition. I learned this from my friends at this agency called AJ and Smart. They do high fives all the time, and I thought it's so great. It's so, we should have fun at work, and the high five is such a quick, easy way to actually have fun. But the elbow thing does help, because sometimes it's a bit, I feel a bit, ooh, is it going to work?
You should have seen our practices before.
Backstage.
We're better now.
Yeah. handprints on the forehead. So, yeah.
So Jake, could you please talk about the differences when running a design sprint for a new service versus already existing services?
Yeah, well, the thing with a design sprint is that it's a great way to start something big. And that could be something big that's new, but it could also be a big effort that's a redesign, a new feature. To me, actually, it's kind of fundamentally the same thing as long as it's at the beginning.
And we have a small competition later where we will have your book Sprint as one of the prize.
Oh, how lucky for some lucky person.
Yeah, I totally agree with you.
Wow. Oh, gosh.
But we also wonder if it's possible for you to sign those
Yes,
books.
I would only be too happy to sign.
Perfect.
And while you're signing that, before you leave the stage, we also have a couple of gifts for you. We won't try to do it simultaneously, maybe, but we have a gift based on a special initiative that a couple of our in-use colleagues started. We wanted to be able to firstly compensate for the footprint that this conference makes, from all the waste generated to the travel associated with it stuff. So we have a little plaque with your
my carbon footprint.
You've contributed back to that carbon footprint. And then we also have a little souvenir for you, so you can remember your time here in Stockholm. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. I guess I won't sign these on stage.
We can have you sign those on stage.
Okay. Ah, good one. We've learned so much.
Thank you so much, Jake.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, guys.